Greetings, fellow DC superfans. Tiki here.
And Bluedragonfive.
After getting educated in all things DCAU Batman, I've decided it's time to embark on a journey to the Arctic to learn about Superman, the animated series. Aiding me along the way is Blue Dragon 5.
That's right, folks. Like Jarrell, I'm serving as Tiki's pre recorded guide through Superman the Animated Series. The goal of shedding light and showing Tiki the way to better understand the history of the last son of Krypton.
Let's fly to the Fortress of Recaps and talk The Last Son of Krypton. Part 2. Okay. All right, Dragon. So I honestly, it's hard to review this pilot without really seeing what part 3 entails, because I feel like this is a lot less standalone than part 1, because part 1 can very much be taken as like, okay, it's like the first 20 minutes of Man of Steel, it's basically just like the Krypton stuff. Here I don't know, I'm a little bit more mixed on this. Like don't get me wrong, I want to preface, I like everything about this episode. There's nothing in this episode that I actively dislike. I really like all the Smallville stuff. I love the characterization of the Kents. I like what little we get with Lana Lang, even though it's not much. I like the setup of all the Daily Planet stuff. The one thing I think is a little half-baked here is that if you need to introduce Luthor, I just kind of think like this maybe was a little bit of a rush job as far as introducing Luthor goes, and it kind of makes me question, Dragon, without seeing part 3 and where part 3 leads. Maybe we could have done like a whole episode just of the Smallville stuff, just of the Smallville origins. I'm also not crazy about the cliffhanger at the end of this episode, because it's like, oh no, is Superman going to save the plane? I'm in suspense, Dragon. I simply cannot wait until next week to know. Like, there's so much suspense surrounding that. So overall, I like what I see. I'm definitely enjoying everything so far. I think it's all presented well, but at the end of the day, with this 3-part premiere pilot thing, I'm kind of just like, yep, this is certainly a retelling of the origins. And I don't know. Like I said, I definitely think I will obviously have a more complete picture once I watch the third and final part, see how that cliffhanger kind of ties into everything. I'm sure that we'll be getting more into Lex and everything in the third part. If I were to guess, without knowing where everything's going, I would guess that part 3 is going to be pretty Lex centric, because Lex is going to be a big focal point of the series moving forward. But I don't know. So that's kind of my thoughts on this, Dragon. Good stuff all the way around. I'm just not quite sure where everything is coming together as far as presenting an overall pilot through these 3 parts.
Okay. All right, so a little context here. So the directors on this, we have 2 directors. We have Scott Geralds, who basically directed a lot of Freakazoid, including some greats like season 1 Freakazoid. Which again brings back kind of the point I was making last episode, where we had a lot of the Freakazoid. Basically, Bruce Timm kind of went to Freakazoid before Superman the Animated Series, so we kind of inherited some of that crew by proxy of that. Could be serendipity, could be intentional. Jury's out. But this guy directed stuff like Relaxo Vision, and basically a lot of the Dini episodes as well, like Fanboy and Foamy the Freakadog. So a little crypto parallel there for you kids. But he also did The Chip, which was the origin of Freakazoid, so it feels very appropriate he'd be doing the origin of Superman.
Sure.
So also we had alongside Scott Geralds, we have the wonderful Kurt Gaeta. Now, Kurt Gaeta, of course, we've talked about him many a time. He got his start here on Superman. He then went on to the new Batman Adventures with episodes like Old Wounds, big famous one. And of course, he was like the famed director of a lot of the great episodes of Batman Beyond, including Return of the Joker, the animated movie. That was all Kurt Gaeta. So he did that and he did Rebirth. Anyway, the writer on this, we had Alan Burnett and Paul Dini. They basically wrote all 3 parts. Of course, very much they both worked on Rebirth, so they know how to really do a solid pilot there. Okay, so our studio, brace yourself, Tiki. Okay, I hope you brought your mug because we got some cocoa with some delicious marshmallows of Dong Yang in there.
Wow, how original.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So big again. Them getting their big splash after sub Batman Sub Zero. That's basically their beginnings here. So this is like Dong Yang and Coco, the team up in the beginnings of it. So, like I said, this is the so I mean, take it. This was intended as kind of like a all three episodes, kind of like it's kind of like a pilot movie. So I
Mhm.
mean, I was wondering going back to this like how it would hold up in terms of like the divvying it up because I mean it is intended to be
I'm
television and
honestly kind of wondering, like, I mean, obviously there's, we can't really go back on it now, but I'm kind of wondering if we maybe, especially considering we're not really covering the stuff beat by beat, if we maybe should have just covered all three parts in one podcast.
I mean, there was an argument one could say. I don't know. There was an argument to be made for both, in which because of the Krypton, because of how Krypton went, I presume that the other two would follow suit. I kind of forgot that we spliced together a bit of part two with like kind of Smallville in like the first 10 minutes and Metropolis in the latter 10 minutes, and that kind of throws off the flow a little bit. So I thought it was
Right,
maybe a little
right.
bit more Smallville. That's why I really thought it was going to be like more like three episodes the way it kind of you'd imagine it would go.
So you were kind of thrown off a little bit too.
I was a little thrown off. I knew it was going to play. I knew it was always designed to be like like all three parts essentially make up one pilot episode. But the other ones kind of follow suit like we had with Batman, where each individual part kind of has like you have a bit of a story going on there. But we're kind of in an in between phase. Tiki, this is Batman. It was like the two parts very much felt like kind of different acts of the episode. Felt very much kind of they could stand alone, but also be very much I mean, they obviously blend into the overall story, but there was something to be said for each individual. Justice League, first season, like the original Justice League show, all those two-parters are meant to be one big episode. So that's why we
Right,
covered
right.
those like all in one shot. So this is kind of like this is them figuring that out, kind of.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so point being, marketing turned this into a movie, three-part pilot. Kind of like the Albuquerque verse in the making of Superman the Animated Series, which I'm going to give you a little bit more here, and then we'll kind of get to the rest with part three. Kind of like the Albuquerque verse, they took the experiences of Batman the Animated Series and kind of applied it to this. So, like, let's just take what we learned on Batman, let's iron it out. Just with the learning curve that we had with Batman on the outset. Batman was the first time we did a lot of this. So now that we're a little older, we're a little wiser, we're going to apply that to Superman, which is basically is the birth of the revamp look. So the streamlined design got started on Superman, then was applied to Batman for the new Batman Adventures to match the Superman style, so they could cross over. So just in design, the framework of the show was like, okay, let's make it easy on ourselves and have kind of a character design that'll be a lot easier to animate and do the movement that we need it to do without killing ourselves with TMS in the process.
Mhm.
Anyway, so that's pretty
There's
much
like
it. The rest.
one very, very specific piece of animation in this. Like one, like it's hyper specific, but I'll point it out when we get to it. That I was like, oh, that's some good nonverbal character animation right there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see. Do you want to read any? That's I'm going to save the rest for part three. But do you have anything you want to shout out before we get started?
Yeah. I mean, we just have. Do you want to get into some comments from Kogias here?
That's what I meant. Do you think they're warranted?
Yeah, sure, sure. All right. So Kogias is saying, I feel curious to know if you have an opinion on what you've heard of Tim Daly's work. I think that he has arguably the definitive voice for the title character. Yeah, this actually came up, Dragon, when we were going through the Batman stuff, like the Superman crossovers with Batman, where I was actually surprised to learn that Tim Daly, he doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he doesn't really stay on for Superman all that long, right?
Well, no, just through Superman the Animated Series. So the rest of it's George Newbern, and the greater DCAU within Justice League Onward. That's a different guy.
Okay, so all of Superman the animated series is Tim Daly then?
Yeah, that's 3 seasons of
Okay,
Tim
that's good
Daly.
to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know because honestly, Kogias, I honestly agree. I really am a big fan of Tim Daly's work here. Like I mean, I didn't really know. I hadn't really seen much of Superman the Animated Series when we got to the World's Finest stuff back in the Batcave days. But I had heard enough, just through like reruns on Cartoon Network and stuff when I catch them from time to time, where it's like, yeah, like the voice actor here really is kind of giving it his all. And I think the actors they use going forward on Justice League and everything, they're great too. But I don't know. I do think that Tim Daly really does have that kind of like. I think Tim Daly has an everyman quality to him, Dragon, that really radiates with his voice.
Absolutely. Now, again, bear in mind, folks, is given how this episode is structured, I think we'll really be leaning into the Superman side of his performance, and Lex in the next episode. I'll say that much. But but you're right though. This is our first taste of Tim Daly, and again, you're right though. Just definitely one of the definitive voices of Superman, without question. Yeah.
All right, and then really quick, Kokias is also saying if you plan on doing World's Finest, I think that doing it in 3 parts in one stream would be good. I don't want to promise anything one way or another, but I do think that's a good approach to have, especially considering we've already covered World's Finest for Batcave. So, we don't really need to go into as much detail on that one as we might. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, though. All right, so let's kick things off, Dragon.
Yep. Okay, so. So basically, we have a kind of a night. Honestly, I think it's the first time we've ever done it at nighttime. By the way, we have the Kents are driving at night as the rocket, and the rocket doesn't even crash. The rocket lands very safely because it's precious cargo on board. We don't crash it like we did in the Donner film. So, our cool anime looking rocket lands, and we have
this is gonna sound like a stupid pool, but do you know what the vibe kind of reminds me of?
Tiki, what does the vibe kind of remind you of?
Scooby-Doo and the alien invasion.
Really?
Well, just think about it, because they're out in the middle of the it's not a desert, but it's kind of like a flat landscape, in the middle of the night. There's a weird alien shenanigans going on. I don't know. It's got a little bit of a Scooby-Doo and the alien invasion vibe. A little bit.
You know what kind of vibe I got? You're not far off, honestly. I kind of got a because that's a good animated equivalent. I had a kind of a live action equivalent. It feels a little like it's basically close. It's it's like I
was going to say Close Encounters. Yeah,
it's Close Encounter. It's like having a close encounter. Like I've never seen the Superman origin portrayed. The big Kent's finding the baby moment as like a close encounter with a human element attached to it, which is a really good idea for how you. That feels like a Dini ad to me. It feels like okay, well that's a way we can do this a little differently, but also add like a big imperative of this show was like, let's really relish in the sci-fi aspect of Superman,
Okay, so that's something that this and James Gunn's Superman kind of have in common a little bit.
I would say so.
So yes. We can maybe track that a little bit going forward in the series.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
All right.
And there's a lot of nods to Superman across the board there, and obviously stuff that influenced later. So we already talked about in episode 1. There's a lot of Snyder took a lot from his Krypton stuff from Jor-El and
of course, yeah.
So there's a lot of bits.
Even as far as influences go, we already kind of saw like. I obviously don't really know how much we're going to develop Brainiac, but certainly Brainiac, the idea of him being like an AI is kind of lifted from this into My Adventures with Superman.
Oh, big time, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, My Adventures owes a huge debt to what this Brainiac did. I will say that.
Totally.
Mind you, they have a really great take on Brainiac, too, but I don't want that to cloud how cool this Brainiac is, though, okay? Well, they're 2 separate cool Brainiacs.
It's going to be hard to top Michael Emerson, Dragon, but I'll try and keep an open mind.
Still, man, Corey Burton, though.
No, you're right. Corey Burton's a good pull, for sure. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so point being, we meet the Kents, and the Kents are really sweet people who, they just.
I think the Kents are they are very similar to the James Gunn version of the Kents, just in the fact that like they very much are like country bumpkins. It's like you don't have like. I'm not trying to throw shade on Smallville here, but you don't have Jonathan Kent running for a public office. You
don't even know what predicate all that public office.
No, I know.
I'm not saying it made sense. I'm just saying you can't take ownership of that.
I'm just saying that's not what I think of when I think of Jonathan Kent, all right?
Anyways. But you know what I do want to take away, though? That the impression I have of the Kents looking back on this is that going from here to Tim Daly's performance, you really do see a lot of there's a great combination of Christopher McDonald's voice is Jor-El, and a lot of like just kind of the forthrightness of the Kents. It feels like there's like a great combination of influences there. In his DNA, obviously, it's very much Jor-El for the next generation. But again, that human element, the everyman quality infused in the Jor-El is what happens when you fuse these two ideologies together. So I really like that. Yeah, it's kind of the feel that I get for just watching it, because these are like, these are honest, good people. They just, in good conscience, they can't leave a baby alone at night in like a field like this, just like alone in like a weird sci-fi spaceship. They can't just leave it out there for like the coyotes to get. So, again, we kind of hint that Jonathan has some realistic concerns here. Like Martha's like, okay, instantly maternal.
Realistic concerns without being a goddamn sociopath about it.
Yeah. And I like, importantly, that we don't even linger on it, but I like that you can kind of feel he has like realistic hesitation here, and he's like trying to say, Martha, what do you, like, you can't,
My favorite bit with Jonathan Kent here, and of course I'm sure it's a lot of people's favorite bit, is I love when the baby Clark Kent like pulls on his finger and like pretty much breaks his finger.
It's like, ow. Yeah. So also we have a cute little Easter egg here where Martha's coming up with names for the baby, and when she throws out Christopher Reeve.
Yes, I caught that. Yeah,
and Kirk for Kirk Allen, the original Superman. The very first Superman was Kirk Allen.
This is gonna sound dumb, but I thought that might have been a Star Trek reference.
Oh, come on, man!
I'm sorry. That's the only thing that came to mind.
I mean, look, I guess you could infer that, but I mean, come on, Kirk Allen.
Right.
A little respect. The Superman no one ever talks about, by the way, which is who, by the way, not only Superman no one ever talks about, he did cameo in Donner Superman. The only time we've ever had another Superman cameo like that in the Superman movie.
Is that true? We've never had two Supermen on the same.
I'm trying to think of another example.
Unless you count like the fucking Flash, which I don't. Sorry, Code Geass.
I mean, not counting the CW, in which we literally had two Supermen meetings.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing. To my knowledge, I mean, we've had other like supporting characters from Superman, but not the actual Superman, because sadly they hadn't really lasted around. So. Okay. All right. So let's see.
Ben Affleck playing the James Gunn verse.
Oh boy, that's a good question.
I don't want to linger on that. I don't want to run it out there.
Okay. Anyway. All right, let's see. So they have a really great transition in naming the kid.
The transitions in this episode in general, and all throughout the three-parter, and I'm guessing throughout the show itself, are all really good.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The editing's usually on point, but this three-parter has really good transitions if you really pay attention to it, like kind of like we see here, especially this part. But it's kind of interesting. There's kind of a bit of a misnomer. I don't know how you want to look at it, but it's Martha Clark Kent, or middle name is where we get the Clark from. Now, it's interesting where she says, "What about your maiden name?" Now, technically, that line shouldn't matter. Again, we established her middle name is Clark, not her maiden name. There's no way that works.
Yeah.
But the only way that really makes sense is like, okay, so he's throwing out maiden name. It's like, okay, no, we're not going to go with the maiden name. Let's go with the middle name. But the conversation happened off screen anyway. So we cut to the classroom. We have a teenage kind of the Smallville era Clark, voiced by someone familiar, Tiki, another Disney alumni.
Okay. Oh, is it Aladdin?
No.
Okay, who is it then?
Jason Marsden. It's Max Oof.
It's Max. Okay. I'm sorry. It was one of the two for me, Dragon.
He wouldn't have been a bad choice, though. In all fairness, he would not have been a bad choice.
I was trying to place it, and it sounded very similar to Max, but also I was like, that could be Aladdin, though. That could be Full House Boy. But no, I do think that Jason Marsden, he does do a really good job here in the very brief time that he gets. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool crossover.
And again, later on he goes on to voice Richie in Static Shock, so it's kind of a little audition for him there. So we have Clark and Lana, and we establish this is want to plant a flag here. We establish Lana Lang.
Yeah, and I think Lana Lang, she does make a good first impression in the, she only has like a couple minutes of screen time here, but I think we get a good idea of their chemistry. I feel like Lana Lang's always kind of like the, maybe kind of like that first love that maybe got away.
Yeah, she's the girl next door, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. Admittedly, going back to it again, kind of forgetting that, we spliced together, kind of like basically Smallville got condensed to 10 minutes ultimately. I'm not saying like maybe they planned on more of it, but just at the end of the day, it was just I forgot it was segmented like that. When I go back to it, admittedly, Lana's dialogue, it's a little expository for a
Well,
pilot.
yes, I was gonna say the whole
It's a
like, yeah,
little
I've had
bit.
a crush on you since we were three. You can tell
Yeah.
me anything.
It's a little, yeah, but again, they only have 10 minutes. They have to, they gotta set her up for later, and we have 10 minutes, so they kind of have to really nail it. I'm not going to begrudge it too much.
Right.
Anyway, so we set up the whole childhood friend thing. She's got feelings for him, which is going to pay off a little later in the season. So we'll get there when we get there. So Clark thinks he's going crazy. He can basically condense like 10 seasons of Smallville to
Yes, yes.
to like 20 minutes. So that's impressive in itself. So Clark, he thinks he's going crazy. He's been subtly developing abilities, but they're not quite like overt quite yet. Like he's like he can have super hearing, like he can hear like the nearby gossip with Pete Ross. Throw Pete Ross before the IHOP. There he is. And we have him like being able to see through like the teacher decorating the for the dance. Of course, we have the obligatory X-ray vision joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, we saw the episode of Smallville. How have you been peeking into the girls' locker room, Clark? No, of course not. He's Superman. I do like this. I never thought about it. This really was like, oh my god, that's really good. It's a really good bit of writing there. Where after he peeks into the gym, to the gymnasium, he says, someone should really be holding that ladder. He's like, oh, he's showing concern for the teacher. That's really nice. That's a Superman thing right there. Yeah.
Definitely.
He's got the instincts.
Now there's a man who would rescue a squirrel.
Well, yes. All right, so we have the influence of the. So we see the influence of the Kents here, where Clark, he has an imperative even before he really knows he has like full on abilities or like invulnerabilities or anything. He has a moral obligation. He's got to help his fellow man, which I thought was a really nice quality to give him pre-Superman.
And unlike Man of Steel, this Jonathan Kent actually fucking signs off on that.
Well, that's true. To be fair, they don't have a drawn-out conversation about it.
No, you're right. But can you imagine this Jonathan Kent being like, maybe don't save those people, Clark?
No, God, no. Can't. Okay, so even before knowing he had powers, he goes to save the camper. Basically, we have this camper that gets into a terrible car accident. That's basically gets to a gas station. There's a big fiery explosion. He's like, call 911. He's running as fast as he can. He rushes to the gas station, saves the little girl. I'm pumping my fist in the air. That's Superman. Doesn't even have the cape on yet, and he's Superman. Look at that.
You know what? That is one quality that I really like about this episode in general. Like, obviously, we do get Cape Superman in the third act of this episode, but especially like the flying stuff that we're about to get. I think seeing that without the cape is really a cool imagery.
Oh yeah. So we're seeing Clark in distress. He goes to his parents later on the night. He's in distress over developing these abilities. He kind of does a little quick demonstration for his father. He's getting stronger every day. It's kind of freaking him out. And then the Kents, and again, it's not puberty. It's a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Kents have decided it's time to reveal Clark wasn't just adopted. I like that they told him he was adopted already. So that was like, so they, it's not all a shock to him.
Right.
So they show Clark the ship, and this is a very well done scene, by the way. I love that. I love Jonathan Kent, the writing here, which is, some babies are found in baskets. Well, this was your basket, son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they basically pull out the box that we set up in episode 1, where he pulls out the box, which essentially is our equivalent to the Kryptonian crystal from the Donner Superman, the green crystal from the Donner Superman movie. So it's a little box that is a little message box that is activated by his Kryptonian DNA. So he puts it on there, and I always love this effect, so much so we've incorporated into our main image, as you've noticed.
We have, yes.
In 2 ways. So this box here, again, it's kind of the source of the kind of the Kryptonian kind of legacy thing, and is projecting directly into his head, which is really cool. Like the mental holographic idea was really good. Again, the Kryptonian technology being really sci-fi, really cool, and not remotely like crystal based like we've ever seen before, which is a really good. It's a bold pitch I never would have thought of, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So so the message that Drell and Laura left for him is projected into his head. It's basically Superman 101, tells him the Cliff Notes of what he needs to know. It's nice that Laura is included here because Laura, she always gets lost in the shuffle. You look at Donner Superman until we fire him off the movie. It's all Jor-El.
I mean, even in Zack Snyder, or I'm sorry, not fucking Zack Snyder. Even in James Gunn's Superman, like Bradley Cooper has the lion's share of the lines.
Well, that's true. I mean, she does encourage. She is responsible for the harem thing, though. So that is.
That's true. Yeah.
Unfortunately, as mother, like she's the one who really got in hot water with that one. It's like,
thanks, Mom.
Like Mom, Kryptonian Mom's embarrassing him in front of the whole. It's like everyone date my son, procreate with my son.
Oh God, that is basically what it is.
Basically, the Goldbergs on a global scale.
All right.
Anyway,
good point.
Point being, but it's nice though. We have Laura just kind of included here a bit in the message. It really feels like one, he gets to see what his parents look like, and he really gets kind of a sense of it's kind of like the kid, the adopted child, looking for answers, and he does get kind of a big answer right here. He learns he's from space. The yellow sun will give him powers. Let's see, we have they give him some good moral instructions here. Again, not quite with the warmth of the Kents, but they still tell him what he needs to know in the limited time they have before the end times. It's like, never use your powers in anger. Remember who you are and the legacy that you carry inside, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we love you, Kel, always. And the message ends. Now, for now, that's pretty much it, Tiki. There is no full-on Kryptonian library. Nothing. That's it.
I don't need much more than that, Dragon. Honestly.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Again, interesting take where it's just kind of like, that's it. That's the only message they were able to provide him with.
Mm-hmm.
Which again tells him everything he needs to know for what the path kind of holds for him going forward. So Clark is upset by this revelation. And he kind of does the classic CW, I guess the WB circa the 2000s, but I know this is 96, but circa the 2000s. We had the WB, so he kind of storms out angry like every episode of Smallville.
So that bit of animation, Dragon, when he kind of does the turnaround in the barn and kind of storms out, for some reason that bit of animation really impressed me. It almost there was a level of detail in his movement that almost kind of felt rotoscoped in a way.
Yeah, I mean the thing of he basically wants to strike something out of it. You're not expecting to break it, but forget it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I love the subtle kind of nuance in the body language that they animate there in that moment.
Here's the nuance I think you really dial into, Tiki. Is right after that you see that hesitation where it's a little like the bit we had in the Amazing Spider-Man where he accidentally breaks the door when he slams it. So it's kind of like. There's a bit of fear though of oh no, look, he's kind of considering himself a freak at this point, and he's doing that, and he's maybe there's a bit of fear, what if I hurt people, and he kind of goes off.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then he's he's kind of burning off energy, he's kind of running at high speeds, he's leaping, not over a tall building, but he's leaping.
We do
first.
the ET moonshot.
Yep. We know Spielberg watches these. We know he watches these things, so I'm sure
he got a memo.
He did. No, but seriously, he watched Batman. Spielberg. Well, we know he watched Batman the animated series. That's how we get Freakazoid. We know that much. Anyway, so so he leaps before he flies, which is very important, and it's a very uplifting scene. Then eventually he flies, and he's kind of feeling a little better about things, seeing kind of the upside to these powers, And
I really like the look of this. I really like kind of the physics of how it's animated. I really like the fact that he's not in the suit, that it's just Clark Kent flying around. I don't know that. There's something really, really graceful about the flying sequence here. It's probably one of my favorite, Superman learning how to fly sequences in media.
Yeah. We have a nice little kind of transition where we have the Kents, kind of reconcile, the little reconciliation of the Kents against the moonlight to the sunrise placard of Metropolis. So we kind of transition to, years later. But basically, we are now entering this is the prelude to Act 3, which will be Episode 3. So this is kind of the big, we transitioned into the modern day. This is basically what our new status quo is. Mm-hmm. So we're in Metropolis. And I like how this is a really great introduction of Metropolis, too. Where we, the audience, is kind of we're kind of in Clark's shoes without having seen Clark yet. We're kind of getting caught up on Angela Chen's kind of saying, Metropolis, known for, some of the tallest skyscrapers and basically, the idea of it's a futuristic kind of Art Deco world of tomorrow, which I'll get into a little bit with the background next week. But yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, so basically we kind of sum up, like we sum up sightings, non-documented, like non fully documented sightings, because Jimmy Olsen needs something to do. We have the guardian angel idea. So this
I
is
do
really
like
cute.
this. I do like that we're kind of like we're entering into the story where it's like Superman has kind of like been around just enough to where like people are starting to notice his existence, but he's not even got a name yet. Like I think that's an interesting point to kind of like drop us into.
Yeah, so like he's
It's
the
definitely
idea.
like if Zack Snyder, God, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. If James Gunn Superman was like Superman year 2 essentially, then this is very much like Superman like year 1.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this yet. They did. I don't know if it was like on Rick and I don't know which episode of Rick and Morty or not, but they did this thing where they actually got James Gunn and Zack
Yes, I
Snyder. I
saw.
think.
I'm not fucking touching Rick and Morty at this point, but yeah, I saw that James Gunn was involved.
Well, I know. I just meant the clip. Did you watch that singular clip?
No,
Okay, I think you'd like it.
yeah.
Just the clip.
I
Just
can't
literally
believe
the
we ever
scene.
covered that show on an episode to episode basis. It's honestly kind of embarrassing.
Well, it was your idea.
I know it was. I know it was. I'm glad
Anyway,
we stopped when we did.
okay. The point being, go where it was. All right. So the guardian angel idea. Yeah, just I love that he saved the girl who fell out the window, like 30 floor drop. It was. It's really great. I like that it's based off the description of the girl. It was a blue angel with red wings.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Lois Lane. So the wonderful. I will argue. I will still argue, no matter what. I mean, as great as Rita Brosnahan is, I still again. We still got to do more with her to really cement her as this. I still love her in live action, mind you. I think she's perfect casting. But in general, though, across the board, Dana Delaney, I still think born for the role. I think she is the definitive Lois Lane.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously haven't seen enough of her yet to make that call myself, but I can definitely see it for sure from what I have seen of her.
Basically, Brosnahan's kind of in it. Is trying to we're trying to go for a live action equivalent of Dana Delaney here. That's kind of what I've always read it as. But yeah, so she and I love that Dana Delaney. She was a fan of the character. She kind of knew and she'd been waiting for this role because the first time she was introduced to the DCAU was Andrea Beaumont, Mask of the Phantasm, which she did.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So that was kind of her audition for this, where they instantly offered her the role, and she was like it's like, oh, I'm so glad because she was dying for this role.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a Spitfire. She's a cynic. She's she's the veteran reporter at basically she's got a 40s. Here's the way I kind of describe Lois Lane in the show. She's got a 40s attitude that fits the 90s career woman kind of.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like a glove, it's that 40s. 40s Spitfire kind of like flair for dialogue in a 90s woman's kind of mentality.
I think one of the most economic things that we get in this episode is just kind of like how quickly we're introduced to Jimmy Olsen. Where Jimmy Olsen, he's basically like Lois's yes man. Like that's like he gets suckered into doing stuff for Lois, but he's a loyal friend, he's a handy partner, and he's a funny little guy, Jimmy Olsen. And I think we get all that pretty much established in like the 1 minute of screen time we actually get him in. That's very efficient storytelling.
And again, she uses him as like a distraction. He's always like the tag along. That's the thing with Jimmy Olsen has always been like the ultimate accessory to Superman. Period. Just he's always like he's there. He gets in the wacky shenanigans. Like Jimmy is like he is like the Renaissance man of comics. Anything can happen to Jimmy Olsen.
Totally, yeah.
Any mess. Yeah. So in that respect, it's like Jimmy is just very like it's just kind of like he's Jimmy. It's he is. Give me Jimmy. He's full of pluck. In this case, pluck with a 90s mullet, but he's full of pluck.
I still like the design, though.
No, the design's good.
Anything else, the design is unique for this version of Jimmy Olsen, which I respect.
No, that's the thing. I mean, I'm gonna wait until next episode because we're gonna be firmly in Metropolis from this point forward. I'll get into like the whole design theory, but let's just say, it's the 90s update on Jimmy that makes sense. And honestly, look, I'm with it. This essentially was the Jimmy I kind of grew up with, so I'm all for it. I like it. And yes, as Code Geass about to bring up Code Geass anime fans is like the Jimmy Olsen's voice actor later went on to voice Danny Phantom. That is correct. Nice. Got his own show at David Kaufman. And you know what he did before Danny Phantom?
What?
He was Marty McFly in the Back to the Future animated series.
Oh dear God, really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
All right, so big thing we got to talk about too. So with our introductions, we're not just introduced to Jimmy. We get Perry White, George Zunza, who was the ventriloquist from Batman the Animated Series. So we introduce him. Like Lois barges into his office, mad that the untitled
This is about
Superman
the most
story.
baseline introduction of Perry White you can get. I really don't get that much of a flavor of this guy yet.
No, you're right. We don't really quite have that yet. And Perry, he's a lot more laid back in this show, but he is, he feels off the page.
Uh-huh.
And we'll see. You'll see how it goes. Okay. Anyway, so but the fact is, like Lois comes in on, he's kind of processing it pretty nicely. Like Lois, like, because he knows he holds all the cards and all the power here. Like, okay, Lois, I hired a new city desk, guys. Oh, is he cute? Well, you tell me.
That was fun.
And that's what I'm saying. He gets a lot of fun bits like that through the show. It's a lot more like laid back, kind of like Perry kind of coming in with like the line.
Sure.
So Tim Daly, Clark Kent. Again, the big thing I want to talk specifically about the Clark Kent side of things. This is a big introduction we do get here, where I think everyone expected this Clark to be like Christopher Reeve, and instead we pivoted to George Reeve, which was an unexpected and very appreciated kind of take on the character.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about George Reeve, but I just like the fact that he's not trying to do the Christopher Reeve impression. I respect that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone, it's the fact that everyone is expecting that. And we just kind of went with the more like that's the thing. So George Reeves' Clark Kent was really interesting in that. God, no one really. Again, the people that worked on the show, that was their equivalent to Adam West Batman. That was like their first,
Well, I remember in documentaries and stuff, people would also hype up like this isn't George Reeve, but people would hype up the guy who did the voice of the Fleischer Superman.
Oh, Bud Collier.
Yeah, where he like that kind of transition of like this looks like a job for Superman.
That's true too. That is also like. Yeah, that was pretty much before Tim. That was the definitive voice of Superman for that reason, because he was the first. And honestly, to a degree, we don't get Kevin Conroy's Batman without like Collier doing that first. That was the first time
very true. Yeah,
delineated the voices. Anyway, basically George Reeves. The idea is that George Reeves wasn't bumbling. He was a very straightforward, very earnest reporter who would again, he was a really good investigative reporter was the idea. But the charm of George Reeves that we kind of had Christopher Reeve, but we obviously coded with a lot of bumbling to kind of throw people off the scent. But it was kind of there, like when the scene in Donner Superman where he faints and he catches the bolt, then he looks at the camera and he winks. That's George Reeves. George Reeves is always like the idea. He knew more than Lois and Jimmy, and he would kind of be playful a little bit, kind of a wink to the audience, like, you know what, Lois, I think he just might be. Like, that was kind of George Reeves, where he was the smartest guy in the room, and he was kind of, which was in line with the comics were at that time, where it was like, okay, Clark Kent was kind of a mockery, or at least kind of like, okay, they're all going to underestimate me, and that's how Superman's going to get the edge at the end of the day. But without, like really falling over himself to be a full-on parody of, So the point, what we get here was unique, kind of like along the lines of George Reeves, and unlike the Supermans that we have had up to this point. It's like this is a very clever and competent reporter that is less kind of the guy like wanting Lois to fall in love with him. He is a rival to Lois Lane, like a respected rival that Lois underestimates at every turn because of the glasses and because of because of the whole homespun Kansas boy thing.
And you know what? I will say, just kind of like planting a flag for like, my kind of like expectations on the show at this point. Like, obviously, we're kind of in an era where it's just kind of like expected that Lois is going to know who Clark Kent is. And I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to play around with that in the show, because like I don't know for sure, Dragon. I'm guessing she never finds out within the course of the show.
Do you want me to confirm nor deny anything there? Or?
Do we at least get an arc where she's trying to figure it out?
I wouldn't say an arc, but probably not.
So does she ever find out?
No.
Okay, you see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's actually interesting just because we're so used to the whole, like, we start James Gunn Superman. It's like, we don't even really know, like, how that conversation went down, how she found out. It's just, we so readily accept that she knows,
Yeah.
That was like one of the very few smart writing decisions on Lois Lane and the Zack Snyder verse, is the fact that like one of the first, like her discovering that Clark Kent is Superman is like basically like how she meets the guy in the first place. So so I am curious to see like how we go back, especially like with this episode being a classic example of like, oh, Clark Kent's in the room, but then shit goes down and this looks like a job for Superman. Like, I am curious. And granted, I don't think obviously I know we're not really going to get full-fledged like character arcs or anything. I'm just curious to see how it's going to be handled.
Right.
That whole element of the show.
Right. Anyway, so I also, again, him being a reporter makes a lot of sense here. He's he's a really good investigative reporter, which basically is his link to the news of the world and the people to save and the people of Metropolis. So that's kind of like that's why he's there, and you kind of feel that. And if you had to summarize Lois's dynamic with this Clark, it's like keep up small. If you had to distill it down to one line, that's her thing. Like, she thinks she's ahead of him. In reality, she ditches him with the whole Jimmy Olsen thing. Like Jimmy, oh yeah, meet Jimmy Olsen. And oh yeah, hey Mr. Kent, hey CK, let me show you my pictures. And then boom, he's she's gone, but Clark's going to be there at the gala at the demonstration at the LexCorp demo.
Sure.
All right, let's see. So speaking of which, so basically, we kind of capped the episode off with we're at LexCorp. They're doing this big demonstration of the Lexoscale 5000, which basically,
and like I said, if I have one nitpick with this episode, it's like I don't mind that we go to Metropolis Dragon. I just kind of think that it's a little bit misguided to shove Lex into like the last 5 minutes of this episode, and it's not even really that substantial of an introduction for him. Now granted, I know this is meant to be watched in 3 parts. I'm just saying, like, as someone who is watching it episodically week by week, it's a little weird. It's a little weird just be like, all right, there's our boy, there's Clancy Brown. He doesn't really get to do much, but he's there.
Right. Well, Tiki, I'm going to say this. I mean, you're right. Okay. Obviously, when we get the third piece, I think a lot's going to fall into place for it, clearly. But
I'm sure it will, yeah.
Just taking it on its own, just the way we're doing here. And again, I can't help but factor in what I know with 3, but just even with what we have here, looking back on it, we are casually dropping in Lex, but that's by design. It's just kind of like, okay, we have Lex, seemingly just okay. We've established like a big, powerful, rich guy, and it's like would throw you off the scent so far if you just had Lex dropped in there, where we have like a terrorist group is like swooping in and stealing his big product demonstration. But again, we have a bit of a clue. Lex, he's very calm, cool, and collected when all this is going down. He is he's walking off the stage and everyone else is running in a panic.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
We just have we have Lex being the charismatic man of the people, and we're not really again. He doesn't have a rival yet. There is no Superman until during the scene. Honestly, when Lex is gone, Lex has not met Superman yet.
And I am curious to see that fall into place, and I assume that is going to fall into place in part 3.
Yeah.
So okay.
All right, so in general, so what we do here, the big take with the LexCorp demo is we set up the plot for part 3. So essentially, this Lexoscale is, in the grand scheme of the DCAU, this is kind of the prototype for the power suit, the classic green power suit thing that Lex Luthor wears in Justice League. So broad spectrum. This is kind of the beginning, the very rough blueprint before we get to something like that with Lex, where he kind of wears it himself. Here's a little flag you want to plant. This suit is made from a very powerful, a very strong patented alloy.
Okay.
So basically, it's interesting that Lex's pitch in episode 1 is essentially for a Man of Steel, which has a couple foreshadows to it.
I did notice that, actually. I did kind of notice that sort of that naming convention. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's see. So so again, we have terrorists kind of crash the party here, and they hijack the suit, led by John Corbin, voiced by the wonderful Malcolm McDowell, who I'm going to have a lot to say about. Not yet, but I will. Some Jack Kirby design influence with the floating hover tech that they're using to steal the thing. Jack Kirby loved like the flying motorcycle thing, so that's kind of what we have a few of these guys on when Superman's giving them chase in a second.
Sure, sure.
Let's see. So Lois trips and she's almost crushed by debris and rubble, and this is where we get the first. It's great that the first full-on introduction of Superman is him saving Lois and like holding something over his head, like which is always the
This
first
is like it's absolutely like quintessential like Superman imagery, which is awesome. It is a really good kind of like, you know, after almost 45 minutes of build up, it's a great payoff to like, yeah, there he is right there.
Yep, right there. He doesn't stick around the chit chat or flirt with Lois. You know, he's all business, kind of like Flesher Superman, kind of like George Reeves Superman. He gets it and then he flies off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So she sees him up close that the reports have not been exaggerated. It's like a big blue angel, red wings essentially. The one of those red wings are a cape. I'll be darned. So Superman flies off in pursuit of the suit. We demonstrate, and basically it's kind of Superman 101 for the pilot here. We demonstrate, okay, this Superman, he is bulletproof. He crashes Corbin's flunkies, and they fire a missile at him, and Superman evades it. Now, Tiki, here's why I like the cliffhanger, okay?
Okay.
So I love the way that the acting and the way this is the execution on this here, where Superman, he dodges the missile, but to his horror, that missile hits the wing of an airplane, and just a heck of an act break that brings us into.
So basically, you're saying that Superman kind of like feels partly responsible for it.
Yeah, this is like Superman being thrown to the fire of basically this moment, Tiki, is like the big answer and like the big kind of mission statement of like the big answer to how the heck do you make Superman interesting when nothing can hurt him? Well, nothing can hurt him, but you know.
Sure.
Nothing. Superman has to be super careful. It's about what Superman can't control when something like that happens. This is Superman's first day on the job, essentially. His first rescue, I guess, his first big rescue, aside from saving like little acts of kindness here and there, like saving a little girl. This is like Superman's big full-on debut, and it's a plane crash. All those things you have to face Superman with. I don't know. It's pretty definitive to me.
No, I got you.
It definitely makes you want to watch it. Oh God, I have to see what happens in part 3 now. That, oh my God, Superman is possibly doomed all these people.
Sure.
So yeah, it's part 2 for you.
Alrighty. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Dragon, I definitely think that there's nothing wrong with this episode. I think like objectively, beat by beat, it is pretty pitch perfect, and I'm sure that when I get into the actual third part of this, that it'll all kind of fall into place. So, you know, really no notes. It's I'm enjoying it. I will say though that just for the benefit of the actual podcast and me having stuff to say, I think that I am looking forward to us getting past the first, the pilot. But that's not anything on the actual episode's fault at all. It's just kind of the nature of the podcast we're doing. So, it's all good. It's all good so far.
Anyway, yes, like I said, of the 3 parts, 2, it's not bad, but in retrospect, there's a lot of exposition and dissemination of like, okay, we're setting things up, and we have like the big, we have some great money shots. There's some great moments there for sure. Great emotional heartstrings. Nothing wrong with it, but let's just say 3 and 1 have some of the best stuff. Especially 3, but I don't want to give it away. But yeah, it's still, I feel for the Kents. I did learn some stuff going back to this one, and just again, Superman making his big debut, and just that heck of a cliffhanger. I like it.
All right. Okay, so thank Code Gios and also Sonia Pantoja popped up very briefly just to say hi. Hope you're having a good night, Sonia. All right. So yeah, Dragon, take us out.
Yeah. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Saving plummeting airplanes from certain doom. Superman. Making headlines at the Daily Planet. Superman. Having choice words with Lex Luthor.
On the next visit to the Fortress of Recaps with The Last Son of Krypton, Part 3. But Lana, I need some last-minute proof that I'm not just a goof.